Texans win the AFC South. Texans hosting the Cleveland Browns at NRG next week. Let's get 5 initial thoughts on the matchup before the fun really begins.
Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do.
What a wild last couple of days, last couple of weeks, entire season this has been. It is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central, Sports Radio 610, and the Odyssey app. And we have a matchup that none of us thought was possible. Texans versus Browns, a rematch of a couple of weeks ago in which the Browns handed the Texans a 36-22 L at home. Really wasn't even that close. It was just complete dominance, physical dominance, dominance on the outside by the Cleveland Browns. And the Cleveland Browns are a likable team. They're a very good story. These two guys, Kevin Stefanski, head coach of the Browns, D'Amico Ryans, head coach of the Texans, they should be top 2 in the race for coach of the year. Both of these teams are likable. There's really nothing not to like, especially with the current state. So this should be a fun game. But as we all know, and this has to be acknowledged, despite the physical dominance and everything that happened, CJ Stroud was not playing the last time these teams met. And the good old people up there in Ohio know that as well as anyone. It's going to be a different game. Cleveland's going to be the more rested team. They basically got to treat this week like a bye. Texans extremely banged up. Once the injury reports come out, probably going to be even more banged up than they were, because that's just kind of how that whole thing works. But I want to give some initial thoughts. Full disclosure, the Jags are still playing the Titans. I just don't see any scenario where the Jags get their heads out of their butts and find a way to finish this. So this video could be old takes exposed material, but I'm just going to dismiss the Jacksonville Jaguars and say that the Texans will be facing the Cleveland Browns. The AFC South champ Texans will host the Browns in the wild card round. 5 quick thoughts, and we'll have coverage of this throughout the week. Usually live streams are at 10:30, videos throughout the week. I'm on YouTube for the show from 10 to 2. So basically about 40% of my day is spent talking about this Texans squad. So this is the best place to come for Texans content. Thought number 1, the CJ Stroud effect. That's obvious. The Browns put the whooping on the Texans. CJ Stroud did not play. CJ Stroud yesterday had 1 healthy wide receiver, and that was more than enough. He's won games without Nico Collins. He's won games without Tank Dell. He's won games without Noah Brown. He's won games without all of his weapons, without full offensive lines at times. The CJ Stroud effect, that goes without saying. What will that look like? Will they be able to protect CJ Stroud? But it's definitely going to be a different ball game. Now, something that's not necessarily as impacted, and the star of the game the last time these teams met, the Amari Cooper situation. How will the Texans handle covering Amari Cooper? He had 11 catches for 265 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last meeting. 265, 2 touchdowns. How are the Texans going to handle that? D'Amico Ryans last time said, we don't have corners follow wide receivers. He said, quote, we don't do that. When asked why Derek Stingley wasn't matched up more on Amari Cooper. Now the corners, Steven Nelson left the game, came back in. He was hurt. The corners, the secondary's actually gotten a little bit more healthy, minus Jimmy Ward. But when it comes to the deep ball, Jalen Petrie got benched in this game. I'm sure Cleveland's going to try to pick on him. How are the Texans going to handle Amari Cooper? Because if he does what he did last time, it won't matter if CJ Stroud's on the field or not. Speaking of wide receivers, thought number 3, the Texans wide receivers. Nico Collins, great game yesterday. He had 195 yards. It was an epic day. The rest of the receivers combined had 2 catches for 11 yards. Noah Brown, he was out. Robert Woods, he tried to play. He was unable to go. You would like to get at least one of those guys back. I would think that they think that both of them have a chance to play, but the Texans are going to need more playmaking at wide receiver, because the Colts secondary, it is a very young, inexperienced secondary. You're going to be facing the Cleveland Browns defense that is a mofo. in the trenches and much better than what we saw from the Colts yesterday. So the state of the Texans wide receivers would be something to keep an eye on. Thought number 4, how's Deshaun Watson feeling? And I'm asking this in all seriousness. I mean, it seems like Cleveland, and I follow Cleveland a lot. I lived in Cleveland for a little bit. Cleveland has a lot of love for Deshaun Watson. Cleveland has a lot of love for Joe Flacco. It's up and down with Deshaun Watson. I think they were getting a little fed up with all the extra stuff. Well, Deshaun Watson goes down, and Joe Flacco is just completely captivated the city. He is a fan favorite out there. They absolutely love him. How is Deshaun Watson feeling? Do you show up to the game? Wasn't there last time? Do you want to avoid being a distraction? What if Cleveland goes on some sort of run? How do they handle this situation? Obviously, you got to bring back Watson. This is astonishing. Deshaun Watson going to have to – the Texans taking on the Browns in the playoffs. Deshaun Watson sitting out. And quite frankly, might not have been here had Deshaun Watson stayed in with the way Flacco ended up playing. Thought 5, the team that made this possible, Jacksonville. What an absolute disgrace that this was for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, last year, we know that Ryan Tannehill got hurt, and that was why Jacksonville was able to win the division. This year, people were way too high, or the people in Las Vegas, it started out with an 11.5-point win total for the Jags. That was way too much. And this year, they had firm control of this division. You had 2 first-year coaches. You had 3 rookie quarterbacks, and you were supposed to take the next step. And much to the joy of a lot of other cities, the Jacksonville Jaguars just completely crumbled. I don't know where Jacksonville goes from now. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a dumpster fire or anything, but all I know is this. You have the second best quarterback in the division, and you might have the 4th best coach. Can't hang your hat on that Super Bowl too much longer. If it hadn't been for Brandon Staley on the opposing sidelines last year, wouldn't have won a playoff game. If it hadn't have been for Ryan Tannehill's injury, wouldn't have won the division. And this year, I don't even know what the valid excuses are. Trevor Lawrence is banged up. CJ Stroud missed 2 games. Tennessee lost their quarterback, both quarterbacks multiple times. Indianapolis lost their quarterback. They had Gardner Minshew. So I don't know what the excuses are, but I just know that Jacksonville is the reason that this is possible. Those are the initial 5 thoughts. We'll dive deeper into it. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Should be interesting watching Buffalo and Miami. Be sure to subscribe, like, ride along. It is the Locker Room. When it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate you for coming through.
Yeah, it's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker